Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to talk about team performance domain, right? So yesterday we started discussing the project performance domain as defined in the PMBOK 7th edition, right? What are the project performance domain explained in PMBOK guide or as displayed here, right? The first one is stakeholders, which we discussed in detail yesterday, and the second one is team. We are going to discuss it today, team performance domain. That's going to discuss that in detail. In other domains we will be discussing in upcoming days, development approach or life cycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, and uncertainty. So these are the project performance domains as defined in PMBOK 7th edition. So today we are going to talk about team performance domain in detail. What is the team performance domain? What is talks about it, right? So team performance domain addresses the activities and functions associated with people who are responsible for producing project deliverables and business outcomes, right? So the team performance nothing but the project manager, the project team, right? So these are the people who are really involved in producing the project deliverables for the business outcomes. So this particular domain talks about activities and functions related to that. When we will say that team performance domain is an effective execution, right? So PMBOK talks about three specific desired outcomes for team performance domain. What are they? They are shared ownership, a high performing team, and applicable leadership and other interpersonal skills demonstrated by all the team members. See, look at the word they're using. It's not only demonstrated by the project manager, it should be demonstrated by all the team members. So all these performance domains are related to the team, which include the project manager, okay, project team members by themselves. Right. So we're going to talk about how we're going to, what are the activities and function in this performance team performance domain to effectively achieve this desired outcome. So we're going to discuss that one by one. There are 4 or 5 areas being defined, right? Before that, so let us understand some of the key terms in this particular domain actually. So we already discussed in my first video where I'm talking about the key terms in the overall PMBOK, right? So specific to team performance domain, you need to understand who is the project manager, what are the team members comprises of project management team, and who is the project team, right? These are the three terms you need to understand, and you need to be able to differentiate all three terms actually. Who is the project manager? The person who is assigned by the performing organization to lead the project team that is responsible for achieving the project objective, right? The project manager is the person who is leading the rest of the team for achieving the business outcomes. Who is the what are the people involved in who are the people who are involved in project management team? The members of the project team who are directly involved in project management activities, right? So project manager, that if in a number of a portfolio or a program, you might have number of sub portfolios or different types of projects and programs, right? So you may not handle with one project manager. You always to have a multiple people have a shared vision as a management team actually, right? In a typical IT delivery system, you might have a testing manager, you might have a development manager, you might have a program manager to work together. So all these people are called project management team, who involves in taking a decisions, who involves in project management activities. Then the third term you need to understand is the project team, a set of individuals who is performing the work to achieve the project objectives. So you should be able to differentiate who is the project manager, who are the people involved in the project management team, and who are the people who will be involved in project team, right? So let's get into the functions and aspects of the team performance domain. The first aspect is project team management and the leadership, right? So there are a number of ways the project team management is being handled in different industries and different companies, right? In essence, there is two types of management and leadership style is there. One is a centralized management leadership, where there's only one person who takes the decision, and something like, a situation where the project manager has been assigned as part of the project charter, and through the project charter, the project manager has been given authority to lead the project. So that's called more of centralized management and leadership, right? The second set of leadership style is a distributed management leadership. It's quite common nowadays. Nowadays most of the companies adopting as well as recommending the distributed management leadership. So what is the style of leadership? It does is that the leader is acting as a facilitator. The leader is acting as a servant leader, right? So nowadays most of the project is running, in IT industries in specific, we are running most of the project in agile. We have someone called scrum master who is a facilitator and who is a servant leader of the particular scrum team. So nowadays, most of the projects being done in Agile and most of the projects are adopting to Agile. So we are now most of the companies, getting into distributed management and leadership style, right? So it is more of, the project manager is playing a role of a facilitator and the servant leader. What is the servant leadership? Emphasize. What does it emphasize? Are the team members, or these are the areas you need to focus. If you want to become a good servant leader, are the team members are growing? Are the team members are becoming wiser, healthier and more autonomous? Are the team members more likely to become servant leaders? So these are the three areas, servant leadership giving more emphasis. So you need to ensure that team members are growing. Team members are growing in terms of in terms of skill set, in terms of autonomy, in terms of thinking, critical thinking, right? And they should also become a servant leader in future, right? What are the few servant leadership behaviors we're discussing here, right? In a typical scenario, the servant leader who takes care of, who is not a person who is assigning and exercising authority. So the servant leader is a person who remove the obstacles, right, from the team, and covering, putting a shield, from the, diverting, of the teams actually, right? They're encouraging and creating a development opportunities for the team, right? So in a typical scenario, the scrum master of a scrum team is the person who facilitates, who removes the obstacles, who protects the team from the external environment to do not get diverted, right, from the external activities, and provide more encouragement and development opportunities, right? A scrum master is a beautiful example of a servant leader, right? The third aspect in team management and leadership is team development, right? What are the common aspects in a team development, right? How do you, what are the best ways of creating a good team development? Is that, building a common vision and objectives, right? It could be a role of a project manager, executive leadership, to ensure that they create a project vision or a product vision in a very clear manner, in a very summarized manner, and clearly explaining the business outcomes and objectives. The second aspect of team development is clarity of having roles and responsibilities for each person, each team member, right? In a Scrum team, we have a clear roles like Scrum team has a clear roles like Scrum Master, Product Owner, and the development team, right? Each one has a role to play actually. So similarly, each project team has a different person has a different roles and responsibilities. This need to be very clearly defined. You can use an asymmetrics, something like tools like that to define roles and responsibilities. The project team operations. What are the operations the team is involved in? It's clearly defining the process and method of tools and techniques to it, right? And the guidance, giving the mentorship, helping them in critical situation, helping them in obstacle situation, identifying the dependencies, removing the dependencies for them, right? And the final aspect of team development is growth. How are we helping them in growth of the team members? Right. The second aspect of team performance domain is the project team culture. See how we are bringing up the culture of the team. Each project team develops its own team culture, right? Each team is unique, right? Each team is having a different a set of people, diverse culture people. In today's context, you look at that. Global team is very common nowadays. Each team will have people representing from different countries, right? So then each team will have a unique culture for its own, right? That Scrum Master or project manager should understand that each team is unique on its own way of working, and the project team operates within the organization culture. So people and team and project management team, everybody should understand what is organization culture, right? You need to adopt, you need to try that same styles of leadership within the project as well. Developing a project norms and ways of working, right? So it's a beautiful way of building a culture, right? So create a common understanding, create a common norms like coding standards, something like coding standard, design standards, something like using a tool of Sonar Cube or using a tool of a JUnit. Some you can create some norms to help the people. You can have the beautiful norms called automation, right? You can have something called automation, and you can define your way of working. How do we interdependent teams can work together each other, right? That's a way you can create your norms and ways of working. And developing a desired behaviors, that's one of the aspect of the project team culture. What are the desired behaviors? Transparency, integrity, respect, support, courage, and celebrating success, right? The third aspect of this team performance domain is the high performing project team. How do I build high performance project team? What are the aspects, or what are the common behavioral aspects of a high performing team? Is that having an open communication, right? That's very important, right? That's the reason some teams we are suggesting like daily stand up, right? We are suggesting sprint demos and retrospectives. It's to have an open communication. Everybody should have a shared understanding, right? If you know the project vision and the outcomes, so everybody will have a shared understanding about the sprint goal, about the project goals. Everybody should have shared ownership, right? Nowadays we're talking about collective ownership, code ownership, right? Trust with each other, collaboration, adaptability to the changes, right? What are the if any changes coming from the customer end user, how the team is adopting, how the resilience of the team, right? Is there any failure of the team and how the team is responding to that failure, right? That's very important aspect of high performing team. Empowerment and recognition, right? All of these are the main attributes to become, to create a high performing project team, right? The next aspect of team performance domain is a leadership skill. What kind of a leadership skills that every team member should possess? Leadership skill is not only applicable for project manager or project management team, it is applicable to every team member, right? The first aspect of leadership skill is establishing and maintaining a vision, right? It should be a very briefly summarizing the project, having the common understanding across the project team members is very important. The second aspect of leadership skill across the team members is critical thinking, ability to do the root cause analysis, ability to think logically, analytically, problem solving techniques, and all people should know about it. And the third aspect of leadership skill is motivation. You should able to exercise both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? So what is the intrinsic motivation? So team should having a feeling of an achievement, a feeling of a challenge. They challenge themselves to solve the problem. Team should have an autonomy and self-direction. They're not looking for high high direction from leaders. So people should have self-direct by themselves, right? Eccentric motivation examples are bonus and rewards, right? So you should have company will have, every company has own rewarding and recognition mechanism, right? So you can build in within the team as well. That, and the next is interpersonal skills, right? It's very important. Every team member should have an interpersonal skill. What are the components of interpersonal skill? Emotional intelligence, decision making, and conflict management. We talk about that. These are the components of emotional intelligence. The people should have some self awareness. What are their skill set? How do they affect the team? What are the dependency of them with other team members? If they are not being one particular situation, then what if they are going on leave? What are the impact of other team members? So self awareness should be there. Self management, right? So building trust, thinking before act. So these are the aspect of self management. And being social awareness, right? Self awareness and self management is one is awareness of self and managing and conducting themselves. So social awareness is being empathetic, imply active listening, how you are helping others, how you are giving respect to others. That's called social awareness. What is the social skills? establishing a rapport, building an effective team, manage attitude. So these are the social skills, right? Every team member should have a good self-awareness, a good way of conducting themselves called self-management, good social awareness, and good social skill. See, all these are components of emotional intelligence, right? So, as part of emotional intelligence, or as part of one particular leadership, interpersonal leadership skill, right? So, people need to think about every team members need to think about these four aspects, right? The next interpersonal skill is decision making, right? The number of decision making styles are available, right? One style of decision making unilateral actually. So that means one person taking a decision as everybody follows it, right? It has its own pros and cons in it, but nowadays nobody is looking at unilateral style of decision making. More we are going towards a group based decision making, right? So discussing with the people, brainstorming, understand the pros and cons of each problem, and discuss with them, come out with the different alternatives and get into a consensus to take a decision, right? So involve the required stakeholders. If it is a product decision, you need to involve the product owner, the product manager who is, managing the product head who is, creating a product vision. All those people involved need to involve in a group based decision making system, right? The third interpersonal aspect is the conflict management, right? All conflicts is not a bad, conflicts always brings a lot of goodness in this as well actually. So what are the best ways, what are the ways you can deal the conflict management is in a better way is that keeping the communication open and the respectfulness actually, right? So improve the communication, keep the open, understand who is doing what, everybody understands who's doing what, everybody understands, others work and everything, helping them whenever there's a required, right? Respecting other skill set and everything, respecting other cultures. Focus on the issues, not the people, right? If there is a problem, don't blame a person, right? Don't blame a person, it's not a good idea, right? Focus on the issue, understand the systemic thing, and now remove that obstacles, help them to move forward, and focusing on present and future, not the past. Looking forward, always looking forward, it's a good healthy culture actually. Search for alternatives together, right? That's where the group based decision making, searching for, going for, getting opinion from different people, different alternative solutions, and discussing the pros and cons of it, and then coming for a solution, right? The fifth aspect of team performance domain is the tailoring the leadership skills, right? You need to tailor the leadership skill depends on the experience of the team members within the type of the project, right? So for example, if you're involving an ERP implementation, right, it can be SAP or Oracle implementation. What are the experience of the team members, whether they are new to this Oracle or new to SAP, or the experience already experienced with those technologies? It is very important to understand, right? So experienced, if the team is already experienced, they don't need much monitoring. But if the team is little less experienced, you need to exercise certain more monitoring and controlling, right? And similarly, the maturity of the team members, how mature they are, right? The more mature team members will require a less oversight, and less mature team members will require a more oversight, right? So similarly, the organizational governance structure also affecting the tailor leadership accordingly, right? So because your team members, your team is operating within the organization structure, right? So you need to understand what are the organization standards, organization policy. Your team need to operate within the structure. So you need to tailor your team's behaviors and leadership skills according to that, right? So similarly, that fourth option is fourth one is a distributed project team. That is unavoidable today's context, right? So we are talking about global team today. To have an effective distributed project team, you need to have a right set of collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, running an audio call, video call using that tool, right? And having at least one or two face-to-face meetings also will help them. So these are the ways and means in which you can tailor the leadership skills. You need to team should adopt and tailor its way of working and leadership skills, according to the experience and maturity of an organization structure, right? Yeah. So coming to the final slide, how do we, we discussed, five different aspects required, team performance domain, right? So we talked about project management and leadership. We talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about culture of the team members. We talked about leadership skills, tailoring the leadership skills, right? So these are the 4 or 5 aspects of project team performance domains. And we also discussed about the 3 you know critical outcomes from the team performance domain. In the first slide we talked about, right, shared ownership, high performing team, and applicable leadership and other interpersonal skills. So these are the 3 outcomes we can measure to have the effectiveness of team performance domain, right? So how do I check? How do I check this shared ownership, right? So one way of checking is all the project team members know the vision and objectives. The project team owns the deliverables and the outcomes of the project, right? That's nothing but about shared ownership. Everybody should understand vision and objectives. The project manager, executive leadership should provide a given vision and objectives, and it should be visible to everyone, right? Wherever there is an opportunity, you should be able to run that for any any new team members, right? The project team wants the deliverables and outcomes of the project, right? That's very important, right? How do I check a high performing team? The project team trust each other, right? The trust is very important way of checking the high performing team. If the team is adapting to the changing situations, right? The team is resilient to the face of challenges, how they are reacting to the challenges, how they are dealing the failures. That's very important, right? If the team is feeling empowered or not. So these are the points we can check to understand the effectiveness of the high performing team. How do I check interpersonal skill and leadership skills are being demonstrated, right? So how the team members are applying the critical thinking and interpersonal skills, right? What are the project team member leadership styles are appropriate to the project context, how they are tailoring it. That's very important. That's how I want to check it, right? So the application of critical thinking and interpersonal skill is the one way of checking the applicable leadership of these interpersonal skills, right? So with that, we have come to the end of this video. So thanks for listening. We will discuss with other performance domains from tomorrow. So feel free to put your comments, in effectiveness of this video and what are things you want to discuss. I'll be happy to do that videos for that, right? So thanks you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.